Good morning and welcome to the NBA Daily for January 22nd, 2025. Coming up, the Suns have made a trade. Maybe it's the first domino in a Jimmy Butler trade. Nikola Jokic still in the MVP conversation, and Marcus Thompson has it's not a wild take, but it's a strong Oklahoma City Thunder take. Good morning, everybody. Good morning, Zena. We had some blowouts last night. It's supposed to be rivalry week, kickoff night or something. And man, a little bit of a dud. No Embiid for the Sixers. So, you kind of knew what you were going to get there. Although Knicks Nets, pretty fun last night.
Yeah, they kept it competitive. I am a little disappointed in the way that some of these big national TV games have played out. I mean, between the Cleveland Cavaliers being blown out
last week
by OKC last week, and then the beating the Warriors took by Boston on MLK Day, of all days. We're supposed to talk about unity and good competition and fight. Yeah, it wasn't pretty for them. And then you see
they rolled over peacefully. I mean,
Hey, that's not what MLK would have wanted at all. But yeah, and then you see Denver just take care of business against the 76ers. It's just like, yeah, some of these games are not panning out the way that these TV outlets definitely anticipated. They got to pick it up.
Yeah, it's the dog days. But, look, we're leading up to the final push to the playoffs. I mean, everyone's thinking about, the All-Star break coming up. But the biggest date on the calendar in the next few weeks is, of course, February 6th. We got the trade deadline coming up. And the Phoenix Suns have made a trade and this is, Zena, this is the first step in what it appears to be is the push to get Jimmy Butler. They have moved their 2031 first-round pick unprotected to the Utah Jazz for 3 future firsts. So they're going to get the 25, 27, 29 pick. That's the worst between the Cleveland Cavaliers, the Minnesota Timberwolves, and the Utah Jazz. So they're going to get the worst one of those for 3 years. But really, Zena, this is about being able to put together a more appealing trade package for Jimmy Butler.
But the thing is, even if you have these picks, it's a matter of who wants these picks. I mean, they're not necessarily something that's incredibly desirable on the market. And then Jimmy Butler, another team's going to have to be involved in order for Jimmy Butler to find their way to Phoenix. And that's what you got to find, is that third team that's willing to move some assets. What are they going to get back in order for Jimmy Butler to find his way to Phoenix? I think that Phoenix is doing too much. In my opinion, look in the West. You've already got a blueprint settled out for you. Look at what OKC did. Get rid of your stars. Rebuild. Go through the draft. Look at where OKC is now with the talent they have amassed and the arsenal they have amassed by getting rid of their stars. I really think that Matt Ishbia bite the bullet on Bradley Beal. Okay? That trade was not ideal, especially as it's not panned out the way you want it to happen. But it doesn't mean it's over. You can start again. They now have 6 first-round picks, 3 of which they're going to try and move for Butler. I don't think so. Move KD, see what you can get for him. Move Booker, see what you can get for him. Stick with Nurkic, stick with Beal, and then see what you can do with these picks that you have in your back pocket.
That's Phoenix Suns go up for the tank. I mean, here's the thing, though. They have a new owner. And the new owner, he wanted to make a splash. They go out, they get Kevin Durant, they make the Beal trade. They've doubled down on this. I do believe they're going to now triple down on this, as we heard Jimmy Butler triple down on his double down trade request. I think that this Jimmy Butler thing is going to happen. And you mentioned it's going to take 2 teams, maybe 3, maybe 4 teams, because I actually think what you're going to wind up with, and we were listening to some of the news to come out of Phoenix, and John Gambardaro, who covers the Suns, he actually said that one of the teams that's on the list that Bradley Beal would waive that no trade clause for is the Milwaukee Bucks. And so now all of a sudden, you've got another second apron team, so they're going to have to move salary. It's going to probably be a multi-step process. But either way, it does appear as if this is getting close. I mean, this is definitely the first step for the Suns. So I wouldn't be surprised if it happens way ahead of the deadline.
Well, it's just with Bradley Beal, you got to consider it's a lot of money to move.
Yeah.
And you also have to consider some of the glaring issues that have come out of Phoenix about Bradley Beal's play. I mean, Fred Katz wrote a really great article about the situation that's happening in the Suns. And one of the clips within The Athletic, you can go see it, is Bradley Beal mid-play, less than a minute left on the clock, tying his shoes.
Yeah.
And it's happened multiple times. Like these sorts of things where there's just like, I don't know, mental lapses or just not buy in from Bradley Beal. You got to find now a situation which he's bought in all the way. And you got to find a team that's willing to buy in to that crazy contract of 160 million over the next 3 years. Like not ideal financially.
Yeah. Speaking of bought in, Nikola Jokic, totally bought in on him. I think he's going to be a great player. No, I mean, obviously this guy, he's really pushing what I consider the boundaries of the MVP case. He picked up his 4th triple-double in a row last night. That's 19 on the season. If the season stopped right now, he'd be top 3 in points, rebounds, and assists. Yep. He'd be the first player to ever do that. Well, since they track stats, we don't know beforehand. Also, Zena, he's 4th in steals. The Nuggets, while we all were sleeping on them, they're now only a game out of 4th in the West. And I know that we've been talking about Shea and saying essentially he has locked it up. And I think that he probably has because it is a narrative award. But if we're leaning on the stats here and we're saying, hey, this guy without Nikola Jokic, who are the Nuggets? I do think there's still a strong case that Jokic is going to win another MVP.
There absolutely is. And just quickly to touch on the Shea thing, when you talk about those standings, yes, Denver is now 1 game back from 3rd, you mentioned?
From 4th.
From 4th, excuse me. They're still like 8 games behind 1. So that showcases what Shea Gilgeous-Alexander has done with OKC. So there's still a little significant gap in terms of the best player on the best team. But the case for the best player has been definitely made with Nikola Jokic. He has been putting up video game numbers. I mean, you already talked about some of these stats. 19th triple-double last night against the Sixers. I'm going to actually list off some of these. Let me take a second really quickly. So, as you mentioned, 3rd leading scorer per game, 3rd leading rebounder per game, 2nd lead in assists, 4th in steals, as you mentioned. These are also his career bests in steals and assists per game. He's also 2nd leading in 3-point percentage with players that have played at least 20 games. Also his career best in 3-point percentage. 3rd best offensive rating. 4th in second chance points. Okay. 2nd in points in the paint. It doesn't stop. Like the list is surreal in what he's doing in terms of being a standard bearer for efficiency, for creation, and just for production for the Denver Nuggets to even end up in this position. You know that Denver would not be in this position without him doing what he's doing. Russell Westbrook wouldn't be having this career season that he's having and where he's reviving his name as being a triple-double king as well, alongside Nikola Jokic that looks for him just as much as Russell Westbrook looks for Nikola Jokic. Everything that Nikola Jokic does elevates the Denver Nuggets. And that is probably the biggest case you can make for what qualifies someone as an MVP.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's a strong argument to be made that every year for the last 5 years, he's had the greatest season ever.
Yeah.
Statistically. Yeah. So,
and the funny thing is he won't even talk about it. He was asked about it by TNT. Candace Parker asked him about this potentially being his best season despite his previous 3 MVPs. And he immediately deflects and talks about the game and talks about getting his team and his team getting in the right position for the season. Humility is crazy.
Didn't even say pretty good basketball player. Guys, stick around after the break. We got Marcus Thompson, and I promise you, this Thunder take is out of left field, but it does make sense. It's rival week, the NBA tells us, Zena. Even though when you look at rivals or rivalry week. Plural. Yeah, well, that's debatable. Our man, Marcus Thompson, he's here for a segment I just decided to call Scribbling with Marcus Thompson. And we're going to, I don't know, maybe we get Bic pens to
I feel like you should say why, though, because otherwise it just sounds like
Thompson Scribe. If you guys don't know, Thompson Scribe is the man's moniker on social media. You are a scribe. and you scribble in a notebook sometimes. What's going on, Marcus? How do you feel about rivalry week? Like, what are we doing?
Oh, wait, it's starting? Is it happening?
The Knicks and Nets.
Oh, you're right. Warriors
rivals.
Kings tomorrow. Warriors
Now
Kings
that's a
tomorrow.
good one.
Right.
That's a natural one. But Marcus, like we get Denver and we get Philadelphia. Okay, and that is obviously built to be Jokic versus Embiid, but Embiid just never plays, especially when it's in Denver. So what are they trying to do? And why can't we just have the natural? Give us Lakers Celtics. Give me Knicks Celtics. Give me like Warriors Kings. I like lean into it for the week.
Yeah, I think it's tough in this. Like, to me, this is where the NBA is trying to have it both ways, right? Like, they want parity. They want to like put teams in position where they can't really like go for it in that sense because they want the lower teams to be able to go for it. But it kind of steals a little bit of the thunder from this thing.
No pun included there.
that pun was very intentional. So you end up with these, I don't know, these kind of weird teams that are just in these tough situations. And especially at this point in the season where like some teams are like just ready to call this thing a season, right? They're just ready to cash in the chips and be like, yeah, what are we doing? Let's tank. Like, it's just, to me, rivalry week is less about geography and much more about pitting like the actual potentials against each other. Like that's what you want to see. Because I don't
Dallas,
care what
Minnesota,
you say.
right?
Dallas, Minnesota. Yeah. I mean, I'm going way back, but there was no greater rivalry in 2016 in the West than Warriors Thunder. And that's not nothing geographic, right? It's about teams that face off in the playoffs. But once teams start losing their resources, they got to start making decisions. Then, it kind of takes away a bit of the luster of it. So I understand what they're trying to do, but you end up leaning on borders more than the actual rivalry at play here. Because, like, who's Indiana's rivalry, actually?
I mean, they sent them to France, so, who knows?
There you go, right. But the thing is, if you look at the actual lineups, and these are all rivalry games that are going to happen on national television. So not necessarily just all the games across the NBA, but particularly on these national stages, they split them up between what you're talking about, this geographical kind of setups. Like you definitely see the Lakers go against the Warriors. You see the Warriors go against Kings. But then you have some storyline ones that are team based. So, the Bucks and the Heat are going to play. We know that from the, 2020 Eastern Conference semifinals. Like, that from the first round of 2023. Like, that makes sense from a team perspective. But then there's also these like one-on-one matchups. And that's where I think it gets a little bit iffy. For example, tonight or last night, you had Denver Jokic versus Embiid. Then you've got, this is going to be interesting the way the NBA set up, Ja Morant versus Zion Williamson. And I'm like, is this a rivalry?
It's South Carolina. You've got the
I
number
didn't know
one
this was
pick.
breaking down like that. So yeah,
number one
exactly.
pick
It's like
versus
number
two
picks.
pick. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I don't know, which one do you think is actually more legitimate of a rivalry? Geographical, team-based in terms of how they fared against each other, or these one-on-one matchups?
This is so funny because like 10 years ago, this was actually a talking point in the NBA. Remember, Dave? Zena, you remember, so you were paying attention in your little corporate world that you were in. Remember when the Warriors won the title and it was like them and Clippers, they spent 2 years talking about it's not a rivalry. It's not a real rivalry.
Right.
And what makes a rivalry? Playing in the playoffs. That's what makes a rivalry. Number one, playing in the playoffs makes a rivalry. The only other acceptable answer is geography. Right? It's Warriors Kings because these fan bases are basically cousins, right? As I like to call them. Or like, like we have a relationship between the fan bases because of the history. Like Celtics, Philadelphia, right? Like otherwise it's playoffs. That's what makes a rivalry. Not like, I don't even think the individual ones. Like Zion and Luka are probably a good matchup. It's not a rivalry. I don't care.
That's not a rivalry, right?
Zion and Zion don't go at each other. You know what I'm saying? But if they met, but Luka and Devin Booker is a rivalry.
That is
because we watched in the playoffs, right? So to me, it's got to be playoffs or it's got to be regional. It can't be It can't be anything else, right? Like,
well,
and when you get the Embiid Joker, one of them don't play, you kill the whole game, right? It's
there
dead.
you go. But now, do you also think that this is a ploy by the NBA, which I wouldn't be against, trying to get the next generation of stars? Because you see this kind of like, some of these teams are middling. Right now, Dallas Mavericks aren't playing to the best of their capability because they don't have Luka. And they've got Klay Thompson kind of playing in and out. You look at Los Angeles Lakers, they're playing mid. Golden State Warriors are playing less than mid. You've got a lot of middling teams within this like lineup of Rivals Week, but you've also got some teams that are playing well and could be showcasing the next generation, like the Memphis Grizzlies. I'm wondering, is this a way to kind of shift the focal point of the audience to like look at these new storylines to pay attention to?
I actually think it is. I just think they don't need to call it a rivalry week.
Right.
I just think these dudes are just good, and you can always sell them. Like, you can always sell them if you want to sell them, right? And obviously it takes time, right? The ROI might not be there right away, but if you just invest in it, like, John Morant is sellable, bro. Like, I don't care.
Yeah.
Put him against anybody. And you don't need to
if
wait for a rivalry.
If they would have kept him off social media, he would be the face of the league right now.
That's why he's sellable now. Like, he got a whole crowd that hate him, right? That's the secret sauce. People don't know that. The secret sauce about the NBA is hate.
You got to have haters.
Yeah.
You got haters, you on top. And John got haters, so that's good for him.
All right, let's talk. You're saying that we got to sell this stuff. Let's talk about guys who are out there on the market right now. All right. Speaking of guys trying to sell around the league, who's the most intriguing guy on the trade market that we know, or at least we have an idea is available, in your opinion?
I like Cam Johnson. Cam Johnson is a perfect example because he's like, first off, this is great for Cam Johnson. This is great. Cam Johnson is about to be treated like an all NBA player, and he's not. Right. But for a thirsty team that needs a really, really, really good player, like Cam Johnson is hot right now. Everybody in the club is drunk and Cam Johnson is fine as hell. Right. Like that's Cam Johnson right now. Like, I'm not trying to say he's obviously a really good player, but he's about to be like, he's about to go down. People about to be fighting outside the club for Cam Johnson. Right. Like, so I like that. To me, he's intriguing to see where he goes. His skill set and the way he's developed and his size and his skill, it fits everywhere. Like, it literally fits everywhere. He really might sway the title. Like, if the right team gets him, he could sway the championship. Like, he's that good. Now, again, he's not Shea Gilgeous-Alexander. Like, we're not saying that. But, man, when it's show time, boy, Cam, if you listening, you better be out there in these streets. You better get all them purple Skittles when you pull up. You better get everything. You better get flight for the family, all that, because you the one.
Yeah. He's a talent that can stretch the floor with size. And that could also
defense.
And defend. I was just gonna say his defense against the Knicks last night. He was keeping Jalen Brunson out the paint. It was impressive. But okay, so you got Cam Johnson. Marcus, you and I have talked about this. Like, I actually thought the Warriors were going to trade for Cam Johnson. Now, that depends on the conversations that were happening behind the scenes. But what is it going to take for Brooklyn to now move? Because we kind of know Brooklyn's on that stage of tank, kind of close the season out. Good. You know what I mean? But they're getting too good with the D'Angelo Russell ad and now Cam Johnson. And when Cam Thomas gets back from his injury, I mean, they're actually really good. What's it going to take for Brooklyn to be like, all right, we're doing too much. Let's simmer down.
I mean, it probably take a nice little 5-game win streak, right? Remember when D'Angelo Russell goes back to LA and he's got the game winning shot and that ball's in the air? I remember thinking Sean Marks is like, no. You know, D'Lo wanted to hit that. And his price, Cam Johnson's price, because of his, again, just how he fits and how many people could use him, especially in the West, because the West is like elite. They got this little elite group and then a bunch of teams that's like kind of mid, but could be great if they get the right piece. And all of them could use Cam Johnson. So his value is high. So I think his price is pretty high. They'd be crazy not to get at least a first-round pick for him.
He's going to get a better package than Miami gets for Jimmy Butler, in my opinion. I think
his package is... And also, you know, the other thing about Cam Johnson, I think I looked this up earlier, but I think his contract descends. So he's less money on the cap next year.
Much younger.
And he's young.
You know what that reminds me of? A Nas Reed contract.
Yeah.
Just like crazy value for a player that can stretch the floor, play defense, and do everything you need on both sides.
He fits longer term with even a team like Memphis too, right? Like this isn't just a guy who comes in for 1 year where, if Memphis picks up Jimmy Butler, they're thinking this year, maybe next year. Like they were never a realistic Jimmy Butler team to me. Let me ask you, what about Zach LaVine? You see him, fitting anywhere? I mean, the Bulls been unfortunately trying to trade him for forever. A player that good, you think they want to build around him?
Bulls ain't trying to trade nobody. That's cap. Bulls like, yo, we got a shot at the 9th seed. Let's run it back. Like,
hey, listen, play the games, man. Nine seed can make a run to the conference
Bulls
finals.
are wild. Zach LaVine is so interesting, mostly because I have that experience of the Warriors getting Andrew Wiggins.
Right.
And I remember Andrew Wiggins' reputation when the Warriors traded for him. Like he left Minnesota. I don't want to say like in disgrace because that's like exaggerating it, but he wasn't like a guy who everybody was like, ooh, Andrew Wiggins, right? It was like, number 1 pick, didn't really pan out. And he just reinvented himself. He became a champion. You put him with the right people and it hit. To me, I feel like Zach LaVine is in that liminal space between, is he going to continue to be like the inefficient chucker who doesn't lead to winning? Or is he just really the right situation away from being a difference maker? Like, and part of me actually believes if he's healthy, like he can be. When you watch him play, and I don't like the way the Bulls play at all. By the way, Bulls are like my secret team. I watch every game. Like
really, you don't like the way
fun.
They play?
I do.
They play chaotic games.
They just throw the ball at the rim.
Chaotic is a great way to put it.
They just throw the ball at the rim. Like they have no interest. It's like I don't need Patrick Williams coming down, chucking shots with 20 seconds left on the clock. Like I just don't need it. Think about this with the Bulls. I just wrote this in The Athletic, but Zach LaVine is shooting 45% from 3, and he's not taking the most threes on his team. Kobe White has taken 50 more threes and he's shooting 36%.
I knew it was going to be Kobe.
What are you doing?
Yeah.
Like, are you serious? Like, I was looking this up because I was comparing the 3-point errors. Do you know in 2015-16, when the Warriors led the league in 3-point shooting, Steph and Clay took 60% of the threes.
Yeah.
This wasn't a free-for-all. Like, everybody wasn't just chucking. It was, let's run some sets. Let's get the ball to our shooters. Patrick Williams is out here. I mean, let me add, Patrick Williams is a decent shooter. It's not bad, but Zach LaVine shooting 45%. How about we get his threes up? Like, how about that? How about he gets more threes? Right? Like, this is crazy. I love Io. Io shouldn't be taking. Io should be. If Io was on the Warriors and he took a 3, Draymond would be yelling at him because, hey, bruh, give the ball up and set a screen because Steph is coming. Right?
There you go.
We got to get LaVine to the Warriors.
That's what irritates me about the Bulls. It's just like, this dude is like literally killing. He's averaging 30 a night, and they just come down like, hey, it's like 24-hour fitness hoop. Like, I don't understand it. It's frustrating. But he can do it.
Do you think that Zach LaVine has the same impact in the way that you said that Cam Johnson could be used on any team in the West? Mm-hmm. Does Zach LaVine's talent translate in the same way that he could be utilized?
So. I don't think so, number one, because Cam Johnson doesn't need the ball, and those guys are always they just fit. And Zach LaVine needs the ball. So he's got to go to a team that needs somebody who needs the ball, right? Like, put him on Dallas. It's like, hey, hold on, bro. Like, that's
because he's overqualified to be a finisher, right? Like, I mean, and that's the thing about Cam. If Cam comes in and he upgrades your 4th starter spot, I mean, that's a huge upgrade where he just is able to knock in shots. All right,
but you put him on the Lakers. Like, like they could use it, right?
Yeah, LaVine, I think he would work with the Lakers. All right, before we get out of here, I need you to drop your OKC take that you dropped on us in the pre-show, because I haven't heard this one yet, and I'm just going to let you set it up and run with it because I enjoyed it quite a bit.
Okay, this is gonna be the demise of my career right here. I'm gonna have OKC fans coming for me. Won't be new. All I was saying was, of all the teams, the most pressure to win a championship is on Oklahoma City. Like, they have to win now. And here's the reason.
I was going to say, Boston not trying to repeat, got the same exact squad.
Boston's already won one.
Okay.
The difference between Boston, the Bucks, Dallas,
everybody's already paid. That money is spent. OKC, if they flame out in the first round, I don't think they will. I actually think they're going to win a championship. But if they don't, they're going to have to decide, what do they do with Jalen Williams, right? And that's going to be three dudes on massive deals. And OKC doesn't pay. That's why James Harden was out, right? Like, OKC doesn't pay. I mean, when Russ got paid, they got PG. They could do 2, 3. They got now. It's easier to do 3 when you win it, when you win a championship, even if they like get to the finals, like But they need to win it. You know what it's like? It's like in NFL. You got a rookie quarterback. You need to win while that quarterback is on a rookie deal,
right?
Because things are different. Right. Once that dude is on Brock Purdy's great when he's making $900,000. Got paying $50.
Right.
It's a little different. Now, I think Jalen Williams is an all-star. I think he'll be fine. But their ownership is going to have to make a decision. And keep in mind, we're in this situation with the parity and the CBA because of ownership groups don't want to keep the money down, don't want to be forced to compete with these big spenders. That's what the second apron is all about. I don't know, but I'm going to guess Oklahoma City is one of them teams like, hey, it ain't fair.
May have been in the conversation.
Right? It ain't fair. We need to do something about this second apron, right? Let's punish Joe Lacob and Steve Ballmer. Well, now they're going to be in a seat where it's like, you got to pay these guys. Isaiah Joe's going to want to get paid, right? These guys got to get paid. So it's better to do that. Like, it's a little, the decision is much more easy when you got a ring, right? At some point, now it's time to pay. Or do they not go? And now you got to decide, we got all these picks, all this young talent. Do we actually trade this in and go get somebody huge? Do you do that? If you don't win, that's going to be a question. Like, they could probably go get Giannis. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Like, they've got all the picks, right?
They got everything.
Yeah, they got
so what do you do?
Right,
like, to me, like, they got to win because, like, the taxes are coming. They got all these young dudes. They got to get paid. That's my take. I actually think they're going to win.
I'm not hating on it. I'm not hating.
I'm not either.
I think it's not a bad take. I appreciate the thought behind it.
Yeah.
That's a great way to end the show. That's going to do it for today's show, folks. Thank you guys for tuning in.
Andrew Schlecht, they're going to win it. They're going to win it.
For Thompson Scribe, Marcus Thompson, and Zena Keita, I'm Dave DuFour, and this has been the NBA Daily. Thanks for waking up with us.